Okay, I think we're all recording. Go ahead,
All
Mr.
right.
Watkins.
All right. Hi, this is Joe Watkins with WorldPay from FIS, and you're listening to Art in the Game.
You're now tuned into Art in the Game, your favorite gaming and entertainment podcast. On this episode, Joe Watkins joins us from WorldPay FIS Global to discuss cashless gaming. I'm your host, Chris Tomorrow. Sit back and relax. Let's get into the game. Welcome back, friends and players. I'm so happy to be together again. Another podcast and another chance for a little you and I time. But hey, gang, it's not just you and I this week. It's you, me, and Joe Watkins from WorldPay by FIS Global. I am excited to get Joe on the show to discuss cashless gaming, the future, and how that all can look for the player. I've got him standing by right now via Skype. Let's not keep you or he waiting. Welcome to the show, Joe Watkins. I should say, actually, welcome back to the show, Mr. Watkins.
Thank you for having me again, Chris. I'm glad to be back. Love you and your audience, and great podcast.
Oh God! All right, well, hold on. There's another one of those. Great podcast. That always kicks it off right. You know how flattery gets you everywhere on the AITG show, Mr. Watkins. No, you all friends, players, you remember Joe. He was one of my very first exclusive guests on the AITG show. Gee whiz, Joe, I think it was almost 3 years ago at this point, maybe 2.5. You were one of the exclusive members there at MGM Springfield Property, and you came on to really decode at the time what was known as the M Life Rewards program and how it all works. So you guys remember, Joe. Welcome back, man. How have you been?
I've been excellent. Thrilled to be back. Feel like I couldn't be more energized about what I'm doing now or to talk to your audience about what's going on. But yes, that was a great episode, and I hope a lot of what we talked about was helpful to everybody and learning about M Life.
You know, Joe, it was. That episode still gets hit every single day. And funny enough, I relied, I do a lot of podcasts. I think this is, we're looking at maybe number 96 or 97 today. And I actually referred back to that episode a few times as I was kind of updating some information. So it became a great resource even for me. And now, as you may or may not have known, MGM has changed. They now have the MGM Rewards program. And I just put out a big hour and 20-minute dissection of that program with Joshua O'Connell from Know Your Slot. So if you guys haven't heard that, make sure you go ahead and check it out. It's here on YouTube, and it's, of course, on artinthegame.net. But really, what we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about Joe. And really, the reason I reached out to Joe is I had questions about cashless gaming. It's really starting to bubble up here in the Northeast, really as a result, I believe, of COVID and of really sports wagering coming online. I figured getting Joe here would really give us the opportunity to understand how it works. Are we going to like it? Everything about cashless gaming. So I figured let's give Joe a little chance to talk a little bit about WorldPay and FIS Global. What is exactly WorldPay by FIS Global, kind of on a high level so our audience can understand?
Sure. So we're probably the biggest company that the average American has never heard of. So we're on the Fortune 250 list. I think we're currently like 245. But essentially, we power the world's economy. We move money in and out of markets and throughout different countries and also different types. One of the ways that we do that is through what we call card acquiring, which is basically anytime you use your Visa, your MasterCard, your Discover card, whatever, somebody has to actually move that money from your bank to the merchant's bank that you're working with. And we do that. So each year we do about $10 trillion, that's with a T, in money that's moved around the globe. And we handle 79 billion transactions. So we are, a behemoth, and like I said, but you probably hadn't heard the name before.
So you're like the third-party transportation of the currency between the shopper and the merchant, essentially.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's a really simplified but exact way to describe what we do.
I had no idea that even took place, so I can understand why not many people have heard of this enormous company that's, doing $10 trillion in transactions annually. That's amazing, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's really exciting too because when we're talking to merchants, maybe and they're not as familiar with the company name, they ask who some of our biggest clients are. And I always sort of giggle at that moment because then I get to brag It's Google and Apple and Walmart and Amazon, and
Okay.
the list goes on. So
That was actually
uh,
my next question. What type of clients does the group typically serve? So really online commerce and Google, everything.
and card present too. So even when you're at the grocery store, Kroger's one of our biggest customers as well. And you might hear me name merchants, but I'm only going to name publicly traded merchants, and we're publicly traded as well. So any information that's public, I can share. But if I don't refer to a name, there's a reason for why I'm not referring to a specific merchant name. But yeah, we handle money both card present and card not present. And that's just 1/3 of our business. We also do a lot of business in capital markets and in banking as well. So we're really anything to do with money. Think of our company. My favorite statistic that will probably sum it up for you, Chris, is half of the world's economy every year moves through WorldPay.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So, and knowing that half of the world's economy now is moving through this group, how does your group FIS Global and WorldPay translate into the gaming industry?
Yeah, so we really were pioneers in online gaming. So, as early back as the poker boom that happened online, our company was one of the first processors to fund that. You had to pay money into those wallets or wherever else you were playing poker. And there's a lot of work that happens on the side too, where we're making, we're educating the market to make it more accessible for players and for operators. So what I mean by that is you have financial institutions that view online gaming as risky,
Yes.
and so we've been educating them to say, well, wait a minute, is it really risky? Like, there's a lot that we know about these players, and let's talk about how risky it really is, right? And so, we've done a lot of work with the issuing banks to get them to accept transactions that they weren't in the past. We work with the networks as well. So I work directly with, Visa, MasterCard, and Discover every day. And again, are trying to, make sure that we understand their rules, and where possible, we try to influence rules, for the benefit of everybody, but in particular the cardholders and ultimately the gamblers. We work with lobbying groups, so I'm on the board of directors with the American Gaming Association. I work with the Idea Growth Network as well, which is another really influential group out of DC. And then, of course, we as WorldPay support those operators that are offering gaming, whether it's card present or card not present. And so that's how we are involved. The EGR, which is the e-gaming review, I know you've heard of them, Chris. They every year, list award winners to say, hey, you're the best at whatever. In 2021, WorldPay was the EGR Payments Award winner for best payments company to support gaming specifically. And in the US, we do about 85% of online gaming transactions. So we very much know this market and are trying to not just help shape it, but also grow it with regulators.
So this is great. No, we're really getting into exactly what I want to talk about with the audience, Joe. So I want to just dial it back a little bit for everyone that's listening. I know most of you kind of understand cashless gaming, but in a really quick nutshell for those who don't, cashless gaming is it exactly how it sounds, Joe?
Yeah, it's just, cash is a way to pay. And if you think about it outside of gaming, there's very few industries, maybe thrift markets type thing, or food markets, things like that, where cash is still a big player. But outside of that, especially in the US, people don't use cash that much anymore. Mostly people are using cards or other means of payment. Everyone has Apple Pay now or Google
Sure.
Pay or whatever. And so, what we're trying to do is really modernize gaming to allow it to act like everything else that we do in life. And it's funny because some folks feel like that's new or that's radical or that's different or I'm scared or whatever. But really, in the 90s, there was something called Tito's, which I'm sure you know because
Sure.
you play video poker, but that's ticket in, ticket out. And when that was first introduced to the market, everybody was stressed out about it because I'm used to my cash and I don't like this, and I wanted the coins and I want the
Sure.
sound. And right? And now we can't imagine walking around with that kind of cash. You know, we want our Tito's. You know.
It's funny. I was watching a movie the other night, like a third time Warrior. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's like a UFC boxing movie, and they filmed it in Atlantic City about 11 years ago, maybe 12 years ago, and it was before Tito's, where went through the industry, and you still could hear the coins hitting the bin underneath the slot. And I haven't heard that actual sound in such a long time. It was a trigger. As soon as I heard it, I'm like, oh, ding, 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 and you could hear that sound. But I could imagine being in the industry at that time, because you're right. We were so I mean, remember, you have to go find the individual, buy your denomination in quarters, and God forbid you hit a jackpot. You got this popcorn thing full of quarters or half dollars or silver dollars you're walking around with, and we got rid of all of that. And doesn't seem like it's slowed slot play down on a national level.
Yeah,
So,
you're absolutely right. And so that's what we're looking to do, is to modernize gaming. And that's both in the casino floor, but that's also all of the mobile. So everything you see mobile, we're supporting pretty much every major player. The top 20 US operators, we support all of them. We support
okay.
all of the lotteries. We support a lot of the big names that you're familiar with. And yeah, so whether it's mobile or even those casinos that you're reading in the news that have gone cashless, Resorts World in Las Vegas comes to mind. They're using technology through a company called Sightline, and we're the engine behind that technology as well. So even when we're super in the background, we're still a big part of the complete move towards modernizing gaming.
So let's talk a little bit more about that. And I'm not going to shy away from the online portion of this conversation. We're definitely going to get to that. But I guess what really has me interested in this, and to share this with the audience, is what is it going to look like for the recreational gambler, right? Someone like myself, and all the listeners of the show who enjoy going to resort casinos and spending some free time and some of that expendable income. What is that going to look like? I'm used to going there with, I'm not going to say how much, but my bankroll. And number one, what's the experience like, and where is it working? And just give us a little overview of cashless gaming today in 2022 in North America.
Yeah, so if you think about, Chris, what are the biggest problems on a casino floor? And you and your audience know the problems a lot. And I know the problems a lot. You referenced my time at MGM, and before I was an executive for them, I was an executive with a regional gaming company, and even before that with Caesar. So I've spent years of my life on a casino floor, and I also recreationally gamble as well. So I'm one of the audience, and I also understand from an operator standpoint. The biggest issues on a floor, when we look at all the complaints or concerns or comments that people have, if you take away how tight the machines are, because we always hear that, I never win or whatever, right? Okay.
Sure.
So you take that part out. Cleanliness, you take that out, because that's always important, but the good operators do that really well. And you start to look at everything else. Everything else is related to the fact that we still use money. So as an example, the line at the cage took too long. It took too long to get paid out at, after I won a jackpot. I didn't feel safe walking to my car with the 10,000 that I won, right? Like, it all boils down to the fact that we still deal with this cash. And then you add in this element of emerging out of in a post-COVID world, and people are more aware of germs and how we're spreading that, and cash is now like kind of dirty. And so what we're looking to do is say, hey, if you go to the grocery store, we're all using our EMV chip, or we're all
Sure.
pressing tap to pay or whatever it is. That's the preferred method of payment in the US. Let's just allow that. And if you talk about the experience, when done exceptionally well, what cashless will look like is you'll go in with your card, or you might have what it seems like the model that's most predominant right now, the one that's sort of winning the market, is a wallet solution. So there's three main companies that are offering that. One is IGT, one is Every, and one is Sightline. There are others, and some are really promising, actually, but those three have merchants that are live right now with cashless gaming on the floor. But what it is you would fund the wallet with some sort of payment method, whether that was your debit card or your credit card or PayPal or ACH or whatever. But you're going to fund that wallet, and then that wallet works for that resort. And whether you're at the video poker machine or a slot machine or a bar or the hotel or a restaurant, anytime you need to make a payment, you now have a single source of truth, right? That resort wallet is going to work everywhere. And a few things happen with that. One, it's easy and convenient. But the other thing, and obviously more secure, because you're not having to deal with, somebody stole my Tito or somebody's following me as I'm walking out to the car. But the other thing that comes out of that is your offers are going to be better, right? Like they're going to have a perfect understanding of how much your true value is to the property and your total spend, right? Like not everything we do, unless you're an ultra VIP, not everything else you do outside of gambling is free. You're paying for things as you go sometimes. And a lot of that gets lost in today's world. And the true value of each customer is something that marketers for casinos want to honor, but it's been really hard. And so this is also a path to really reward and recognize players for everything they bring to the property and all that they enjoy.
And so are you saying that this is a way that you're always plugged in?
Yeah, for sure.
Like it's like playing with or without your player's card. If you're playing cashless, you're always playing with your player's card, essentially, because everything is being tracked.
Yes,
Okay.
that's another good point. And the other thing is, there have been some questions around, well, I like tipping people and stuff. And so, what we've seen really good applications of cashless, happening is they've actually enabled that as well. So when you're tapping your card or if you want to leave a tip in your e-wallet to the valet, all of that's still possible. So you don't lose any of,
Really? That's interesting.
yeah. So you're still able to take care of the individuals who are helping you. And so really there's no downside. And from a security standpoint, that's where all the upside is, right? Because cash is anonymous. And, I know sometimes players like that idea, but regulators don't. And
it's only anonymous to a certain amount, gang, right? Because you're gonna
right.
get a suspicious activity report if you go heavy anyway. So it's only anonymous up to a certain point.
Right, you're absolutely right. But that's also, it's because of that we end up with like some weird rules, like how far an ATM can be off the floor, and things are inconvenient because of the anonymity that's associated with cash. But with this, you don't have to deal with any of that. And so convenience becomes the predominant factor. We want things to be easy for you. But also, like if you lose a pile of cash, Chris, who are you going to go to? There's nothing you can do, right? Like, I mean, maybe you're lucky and security catches the person who stole it and maybe the person still has it, right?
You mean like if you were staying at a hotel and all of a sudden a bunch of money was missing out of the safe?
Yeah, I mean, exactly like that, Chris. Exactly like that, right? There's not much recourse in that situation.
Yep.
But anyone who's ever used a credit card before knows that you can call them up and say, hey, there's a charge on here that I don't recognize, or this shouldn't have been, I only put 500 and it says 5,000, or whatever the situation was. And so from a gambler perspective, cards are the most secure way you have. You have a built-in recourse to be made whole, if there was any fraud that happened or theft that may have happened. And there's tons of technology built in to prevent that. Where again, with cash, your money clip is the best best tech you're relying on.
So you said a bunch of great stuff, and luckily I've got a pen and paper. I'm writing some of the things you said down to circle back to. Really quick, they're doing this at tables out in Vegas. So it's just like it was like a tap thing. You would go with your phone, and you're just going to be able to ante in every time. Is there a way for you to say I don't want to play this hand and sit out, or is it just take it if you're sitting at the table? I really want to know how that works.
Yeah, great question. So Resorts World specifically, which is a very public and very well-known example of this technology, they use a phone application, just like you suggested. And so you would pay, the dealer would scan your phone, and you would then instantly have those funds moved to the casino. But then the table, it's no different than if you did cash. So how do you play when you have cash, right? You get chips. Same thing. You've just bought the chips with your credit card or your ACH tied to your bank account, whatever. You didn't have to use cash anymore. And so, you get chips right there at the table like you normally would. And you play, according to the rules of the table as you normally would. The only difference is how you got those chips.
And does the dealer have to scan your bet for each hand?
No, it's just for your buy-in. So it works exactly like cash. If you
Okay.
bought in for 500 with cash, it would be the same with scanning your phone, 500,
Yep.
and then you'd get 500 in chips. Let's say they're all 25s as an example. So you got a stack of green, and you're betting as you go. And when you run out of chips, you can load more, you can walk
Okay.
away. When you want to be paid out, it's kind of the same thing. Now, what's funny is that we're talking right now about an example of how it works, and we've also sort of talked about how it could work. But today, there isn't an elegant, perfect solution, and it is not a technology problem. It's really us trying to work within the rules of what regulators have allowed. And so, what you're going to find over the next 2 to 5 years, Chris, is one, cashless will become an available option in almost every state. And certainly every tribal land, you're going to find cashless as an option. It will become probably the prominent option towards the tail end of that. And then regulators, once they're more comfortable, will remove some of the more onerous things that make the process clunky. So for instance, in resorts, you have to go physically and register first with like a cage operator and show them your ID before you can sign up for the mobile wallet. That doesn't need to occur. The technology's there to make sure you are who you are without having that step, but that's part of the Nevada, rules and
Sure.
regulations for the operators to follow.
That makes sense. I can understand why they're trying to put, it's just like you said earlier, putting the ATM a little bit of a walk outside of the gaming floor. It's just another step to, give you some time to think if this is exactly what you want to do. Before we move on, I wanted to just really kind of, you said something earlier about the payouts. And I got to tell you, since COVID, because of the difficulty that many properties are having with hiring and staffing, I've heard a lot of complaints across the board from Massachusetts to at least to Atlantic City of people hitting a slot hand pay and having to wait an awful long time to get that hand pay. So I could see where right away, based on the market, based on customer demand, that something like that has a benefit, right off the bat.
Absolutely, 100%. And you actually brought something up. I just want to circle back for a second.
Yeah,
You
this is
brought up kind of responsible gaming, right? Which is a really good point, and another reason why I'm a big proponent of cashless. So if you think about it, when I set up my wallet and it's a cashless environment, at that time, I could say, before I started playing, I could say, here's my budget for today. And I could have the electronics literally deny me the ability to spend
add.
more than that, right?
Okay.
Whereas, when we're on the throes of gambling and that ATM machine's 15 feet away, that's never stopped anybody. So I
Sure.
actually think that the technology will help from that perspective as well. But you're absolutely right in terms of payouts. Waiting for a hand paid in particular can be really painful in today's world, and this where it's live is instant, and that also is a really special and exceptional part of cashless gaming.
The other thing that you brought up was, something that I guess I want to be careful how I say this. It doesn't confront me as much, but I have many, many listeners, friends, players, and members of the art in the game community who talk to me about it, and it's walking to the parking lot. And you know what? I need to keep that in mind because, I'm not always going to be 50 years old and 6'2", and, I'm not worried. But then, what about my mom? What about other people who may have just hit I've seen some people hit some substantial hand pays, and then they've got to walk to their vehicle. And often they'll have security, maybe ask security if they'll walk them to the car. So this kind of does take, no, it doesn't kind of, it does take that concern out of the physical casino experience, Joe. So thanks for bringing up. I mean, didn't expect to get all that stuff right in the beginning, but there's actually a lot here that makes some sense. So let's talk a little bit. All right, I'm getting excited about cashless gaming, but I have to be careful because I want to know a little bit more about being protected as a player, right? It can't be all rainbows and Sundays, right? Like, first of all, let's talk a little bit about player protection in, you said, problem gambling. Is there anything, so I can set a limit? Is it automatically set, or can you have the thing wide open? What are the parameters inside of that?
Yeah, it's a good question. So it really, that's a technology that's going to be based on where you're playing and what that operator has decided to set up. Everybody's got different goals and different aims, and some are more responsible gaming focused than others. Also, certain states have set parameters that help with problem gambling. For instance, New York, here in the Northeast, they just launched sports betting, mobile sports betting, and legalized that. And they created a rule where each year, each individual player cannot spend more than $2,500 in aggregate on credit card usage for each account they have. So if you're with MGM or Resorts or Caesars or FanDuel or whoever, you can on max spend $2,500 on any credit cards each year, and then you can use debit cards or ACH or other sort of true cash equivalents. But that's meant to protect against, problem gambling and people getting into deeper debts and things like that. Other states like Iowa and Tennessee, they don't allow any credit card transactions. It's only debit. So there's different things, but I do know of some merchants who have empowered you to, before you start playing each trip, you can set a personal limit. You can also set like a one-time, like I'm going to go over or whatever. And so there's some things when you have a cool head that will help you budget. And it's all the things that, every responsible gaming program I've ever been a part of wants players to do that sometimes we don't do as well as we'd like. But from a technology standpoint, we can support you in those goals.
Well, that's good. We've got to provide some safeguards for folks. And you had said it, when you have a level head before you're in the game, right? Before all the excitement and the adrenaline, that's the reason I like to gamble. Is I'm not as much of a gambling person as I am an adrenaline person. I enjoy that part of it. And that's what brought me over to this. So letting someone kind of set some parameters before all that good stuff kicks in, I think is a good idea, especially because that's always been my concern. I had Ryan McCullum on, and he's a big proponent of sports betting for all, not just for not for all, but for bars and restaurants and everyone to be able to be a part of it, maybe run through the lottery like other states do. And all of this has, a cashless element to it. And I could understand how it can get out of control quickly. So it's important, sports betting I know it's not legal here in Massachusetts, but let me tell you, it's been around, right? It's been around for a long time. And people can get over their heads really quickly. Seems like almost more so with sports than with like going to the casino. And I always thought a lot of that because on the street, you're betting with credit, right? You're not really betting. You don't go down to the bookie and say, all right, here's my 100. You contact them and you say, I want this on that. And then, if you lose, you got to pay. It's as simple as that. So I want to see protections and just me personally as a player, I'd like to see that continue. And I'm glad to hear that, WorldPay by FIS Global is kind of like jurisdiction. It kind of goes by jurisdiction as to what you're able to do for that player.
Yeah, and we work directly with the regulators and work within the rules process to help create that environment as well. So like right now, we're working with the state of New York trying to enable iGaming. And we're working in Ohio. Obviously, sports betting has passed there, but the rules are being created. And so we're working directly with the OCCC to make sure that they're thinking about payments, thinking about responsible gaming for players, and that the right level of protections are in place so that everyone can win. Because it's only a positive thing when it's fun, and we want to keep it that way.
So it's all fun and games until it's not fun and games anymore, right? We got to keep it going. So as a player, how do I know, like, all right, so I'm going to join, right? So I'm going to join. How do I know my information is going to be secure, especially if I'm working with WorldPay by FIS Global?
Yeah, it's a great question. So you're not going to know that you're working with us probably, right? So our clients are the businesses that you're interacting with. So I guarantee that you are already working with us a million times in your life, your day-to-day life, unless you absolutely have never used money. You are, we don't move half the world's economy and not interact with, we have over 1 million merchants. So, with that, you are using our services. But what you should know is that this is specifically what we do. There's federal laws in place called, PCI DSS, which is essentially a set of standards that we have to protect your card information to a certain, degree and a certain standard. What I recommend to merchants that work with WorldPay is what we call an end-to-end encryption. So when you, Chris, are entering your card information on merchant X's website, let's not name a merchant, let's just say one, right? and you're entering your card information. The ideal circumstance, and in the vast majority of cases with merchants that work with me, you're not actually entering it on their servers. You're entering it on WorldPay servers, and it's fully encrypted the entire time. And what that company gets is what we call a token, which is basically a code that means nothing to anybody on the planet except WorldPay. And so every time afterwards, when you initiate a transaction, that buy now button, right, that we're all familiar with, and you just hit that button, that company sends us the token, and then we decrypt it, and we then pass that message on to the networks and the issuing banks. And so from end to end, your information is secret to everyone, even the merchant that you're working with.
Wow. Okay. That's, it's almost above my pay grade, right? What you're talking about, but I can understand that the merchant's not really handling it. It's your group that's handling it. And they don't, I get that you're just giving them a token opposed to, they're getting all of your information. Speaking about different groups and calling it like, company X, how do I know, right? Like, it seems like if you search like online gambling, boy, you get a lot of things on your search engine. How do I know that I'm doing business with, a legitimate online gaming business that's doing business with a group like yours?
So that's a really important thing. The world's largest sports book, as an example, is not a legal sports book. And, I won't name them, I don't want to, make anyone feel bad. But if you Google who's the world's largest sports book, you'll see, and they're not legal anywhere in the US. So what I would recommend to your audience is to look up first what's legal in your state. In every state, they're regulated, that does have legal gambling. There's a regulatory authority. In Massachusetts, it's the MGC. But depending on what state you're in, there will be a regulatory authority, and they have on their websites, all public information, every and any merchant that is legally allowed to operate. And there's some key protections that come from, dealing with someone that's legal. One, they're held to certain standards in terms of making sure the games are fair, making sure that they're not allowing AML concerns or underage gambling concerns. They're not dealing with terrorists, right? So they've passed the OFAC requirements. So, everyone is above board that is allowed to play, but also all of their backing and their funders are all above board. But the biggest thing is that, the reason we as voters keep letting gambling get approved in more and more states, in part is because we want to have the fun, but you said it yourself, Chris, the fun was there. We had the local bookie, or we had the big online illegal operators that existed. The other half of it is that these merchants give back to the community in the tune of millions and millions and millions of dollars in tax revenue. And when we're gambling with folks that aren't part of that legal ecosystem, we're stealing from our own communities, and the reason that we've allowed these gaming operators to exist. So I strongly encourage folks to make sure they're getting a fair game. They're getting, nobody that is an undesirable, let's call it, that you're working with, and that ultimately your play is rewarding your community.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, they're, in Springfield, they've got host agreements that, there's a certain amount has to go back into not only the actual community, but even surrounding communities. So I guess I didn't even think about it in that standpoint. So thanks, Joe. That's a great point for gamblers, because of course, that's the reason that constituents of the Bay State voted for gambling. Like you say, we keep kind of legalizing it, and I'll just add my personal opinion is that I think it's because of the money. I don't really think it's because of the fun. But look, when you start showing the billions of dollars that are available to state coffers over the course of time through legalized gambling, it's the same thing as the cannabis industry, at least here in Massachusetts. For years, it was this Lucifer's lettuce. Now, you drive up Interstate 91. I think the billboard industry is in love with the cannabis business because every billboard has come by weed. So, and why? Because it's something that people want, and it's not harmful to the public. And at the end of the day, it's going to actually benefit the community through giving back through financial donations through that work, just like I think gaming is. I think that's why I like talking about gaming. It's kind of the same thing. It's kind of exciting. Hey, hold on a bit. I don't know if that's the right thing for the audience, but hey, what the heck? It's a loose show today. Let's talk a little bit about what happens if I've got a problem, right? And when I say I have a problem, not like a problem with gaming, but like something went wrong, right? Like I didn't want to make that bet, or I feel that credits got taken from me, inappropriately. What recourse do I have? I mean, what now I can go to the cage, right? If I'm at the casino and I can ask to speak to somebody, what do I do if I'm an online player?
So what's great about online is everybody has just approached it in a similar fashion as in-person gaming. So you might, if you're a VIP player, you probably have a host. There are marketing teams, there are operations teams. There's a lot of the same staff, right? You're not getting anyone serving you beverages unless your wife decides to be really friendly that day for you. But outside of that, most of the staff that's manning the actual casino still exists in a mobile sense. But what's great about mobile from that perspective, Chris, is that it's so competitive right now that I think you're going to find their willingness to engage and solve that problem is probably 100 times
Hmm.
higher than it would otherwise be in an in-person situation. If you're like, hey, just credits went missing, they're going to research and they're probably going to make it right and then some. You look at the free play offerings that are available online, the promotional play that's available online, it far exceeds what you're used to in an in-person environment. And some of that has to do with just the fact that, there's so many more operators that exist, but then also because it's just so much more competitive right now. And so everyone's trying to win market share, and service is a big way to do that.
Sure. Hey, make it easy, make it fun for the individual. I could see why people would want to try. I've seen now that it's really kicking off down in Connecticut. I see that there's the online at home. If you're in the geographical state of Connecticut, you're able to set up an account. And I'm seeing some people post some jackpots by there and, about that. And it's kind of exciting. I have to admit, I'm a little timid about it, just personally. It's like I want to watch how that all happens. But the things that I'm learning today with you about having some safeguards and some of the benefits that come with it, starting to kind of cool me a little bit about some of those concerns. Where do you think, if you could point to, I know you said this is kind of like an evolving situation, that we're not, at the optimum zenith yet of cashless gaming, but right now today, what model or where is it working best in your opinion?
Well, if we're talking about in person, I think Resorts World's the closest, because their wallet, which is through Sightline, it actually integrates to the rest of the resort as well. Because of regulations, the funds have to be separate, so you kind of have two wallets there, but it's a very elegant solution, and especially once you're signed up, that's the most clunky part. But once you're signed up, then it works really, really well. There's no bugs at all, and so I think that's great. I think IGT, which with IGT Pay, also has really elegant solution in Stations Casino, and it's working really well there in Las Vegas. But in general, I think where it works the best is online right now because we're so good at that. And so, paying in online is not really a concern anymore. We're seeing acceptance rates that mirror any other, vertical or any other industry. So, if you're doing online retail or if you're doing online gaming legally, you could expect nearly identical acceptance rates, which means you, Chris, are using your card, and out of 100 times, 100 people like you use their card, how many times are we getting acceptance from the issuing bank? And we're getting those acceptance rates really at the levels that we would expect with virtually any business. In lottery, as an example, we have 96% acceptance. So the 4% of the time that we are rejecting something is probably for a good reason.
Okay. Other words, this is not their card. You don't want we don't want this to happen. You get that phone call in the middle of the night where someone bought 12 tickets to Amsterdam on your card or something. So that's never a good one. What types of, what type of, this is a weird question, is all gambling really potentially a cashless game?
Yeah, for sure. So, in the states where it's legal, there's 6 states that allow iLottery. And so all of those online lottery operators or states have cashless as an option, of course. But in several other states with lottery, you can use your card at like a kiosk or whatnot to make a purchase. We support all of those as well.
Okay.
So, lottery is a use case. Sports betting is obviously a major use case. iGaming is a use case. Getting in-person gaming's a big one. But there's other things that the networks, and when I say the networks, I mean Visa, MasterCard, and Discover, they think of as gaming that maybe you and your audience don't necessarily. So fantasy sports, as comes to mind. That's considered gaming from a financial institution standpoint.
Okay.
And so that would also qualify. Skill games. If you and I decide to, enter a contest where we're going to play each other in a video game, and it's a tournament against a bunch of other people, and we paid to enter, that's actually part of gaming as well, according to the network. So, there's lots of use cases, but the short answer is yes. If you think about it, most people aren't using cash in their day-to-day life that often, especially below a certain age group. We have a report that's called Generation Pay, and it really illuminates that once you're Gen X or lower, you basically you don't have cash ever.
Right.
And so, every vertical who wants to appeal to, the full spread of adults needs to include cashless options.
Automation is here to stay, and it's coming more. There's nothing that we can do about it. We built our society kind of off of a labor-based economy, and that's just going away. I mean, it's just the way of the future. And just as we're talking about here, replacing maybe folks who might be paying slot payouts, where they're now going to be getting it on their phone. All of automation is here to stay, and I guess the way for me not to be scared about it is to figure out ways to make it work better for the end user. And I think there's opportunity for employment and opportunity for financial goals with providing that automation, that experience. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does. And I would say a lot of the automation's there, Chris. It's just and it's expensive and it's onerous. I'll give an example. You're playing your favorite video poker machine. You're out of cash. What do? Well, what you do today is you get up and you walk to an ATM and you pay $8 in fees. And then you walk back and you find that some other person just sat in your seat, and 4 minutes later they hit a royal and you're furious, right? And so, now like you don't have to pay that $8. It's free
Sure.
to get more money. You can do it right there on the spot. And so what does that mean? Well, it means you're sitting playing longer, which means you're going to order another drink. And that's another job, right? That's helping the bar. That's helping
Sure.
the cocktail servers. That's more things, more reels are spinning. That means more slot service techs are needed. So, it's not replacing jobs. It's moving them a little bit, but it's moving them so that they're serving you better and not wasting your time, because you're standing at the cage forever waiting to get paid.
Hey, MGM's been using a robot to make drinks while you're playing on the floor. You don't know that, or if you listen to the show, you know that, but it doesn't change things for you. Your drinks are coming out; they're coming out good. It's really the people factor that changes, I guess, all of that stuff. So no, I appreciate that. And one of the things that you brought up too was talking about how the video game world kind of goes through the gaming part of your industry, and really something that I've been really kind of blown away by is the emerging esports industry. That seems like the gambling industry really is in juxtaposition and wants to get in that esports. That basically, folks, for those of you who don't understand, people are playing video games and they want to eventually be able to even bet on the people who are playing the games. Am I getting that right, Joe? I know this is off topic here.
No, you're exactly right. So, when we talked about the different sort of verticals of gaming, and so from the network's perspective, it's a skill game if you are entering a contest that the outcome is based on your own performance. And it's probably sports betting if you're betting on the outcome of someone else's performance, right? So if I'm playing the video game, that's probably skill. And if I'm betting that Chris is going to win his video game match, that's probably sports betting. But a lot of states have had the foresight, and luckily, part of my job, I get to be involved in making sure they have the foresight to make the definition of sports really broad. So when they approve these sports betting bills in different states, it's inclusive of things like esports, because really, what is sports in general? It's just a game between people that I want to put action on. And does it really matter if it's Call of Duty or if it's football?
It's amazing to me. I recently learned about this. I was able to visit with family that I haven't been able to see from COVID, and we had our nieces over. My niece is in college in Boston. Her college has people there full boat for esports. And I literally did a double take, and I said, excuse me. And really, I had to kind of get it through my head that playing these games are actually the job of the future that we're missing, right? And it's inside of that I guess I was talking about, that automation opportunity for people to start. I know we're getting off topic of gaming. It's more like what's happening in the world today, but I'm blown away about esports, the potential of financial goal through becoming excellent at a skill game, and all of the residual kind of ancillary funds that come around with that.
I completely agree with you. I'm not a financial advisor, but my hot stock tip is to look towards teens and whatever's cool, what they're into, that's the future. And my son is all about Twitch. He's all about, playing video games and watching people play video games. And he's more interested in that than traditional sports. And so I'm proud our company actually supports Twitch. And I'm very much looking to invest in spaces like that based on my son.
Yeah.
So he's my financial advisor.
Joe, you and I are you're in the same. You and I are in the same boat. My daughter has a YouTube channel, and she plays video games and does like a screen record of like playing SpongeBob or different games. She has over 100,000 views. I mean, I'm people are like, they follow her. I mean, she's 10, and it's just about playing the games. And I didn't quite get it right. She does, of course, other videos and fun things, but it's actually people watching her play, not her, just the game being played by her is getting an immense amount of views. And I guess I didn't really realize that. I guess we're letting our kids kind of teach us. That's a good thing, Joe. I don't want to work all my whole life. Let's get these kids going. Have them play some games, and we can sit by the pool. Sounds good, right?
Yeah, amen to that. We'll bet on our sports while we're sitting at the pool.
What states are coming online next? I know I kept you here a while. We're at 46 minutes. I still have some really good questions I want to get to you. Are there new states coming online we can look at?
Yes, this is the short answer. So right now, California and states like Florida are potential. I'm really bullish on Missouri. I think that will happen. There's a bill that's happening right now that I think is very promising. North Carolina also looks really interesting. Massachusetts is obviously important to you. I think that's hot for this year. Maine is also hot for this year. But there's others that, there's like the bull case and the bear case, right? So that's the bear case. I think the bull case includes a number of other states as well. So this is going to be an important year for sports betting in particular. And then we're seeing more and more states introduce bills for iGaming. And that's really exciting because then you have every opportunity to play. And it's also seamless. You talked about what's that experience, but if you have the wallet solution, your play online also matches your play in the casino. You have the same money. It moves seamlessly back and forth, and it's just a really great experience. So I'm excited about 2022 and beyond.
What are some of the ways that people can pay to play? It's like you said earlier, you could do a credit card. You can do, I would imagine, like a debit card.
Yeah, so credit and debit are about 70% of how people choose to pay online, followed by ACH. And that's just using your bank account information. It can be a little clunky because we don't always have our routing number and bank account info handy at the time, right? So that's why I think it's a little bit less common. And then there's a bunch of little ways. PayPal comes to mind. Some people are still using. Some folks use like prepaid cards. Blackhawk is probably the largest prepaid card company that I'm aware of, and I know they have a huge marketplace. And then actually, believe it or not, Chris, some people found a way to do cash. So there are places that will accept cash in person that will then give you a voucher to play online.
No, that makes sense. You go to a terminal and you're able to kind of, in a way, I kind of like that, where you're seeing what you're funding, to your account. So that doesn't scare me all that much. How do you think cashless gaming will benefit the future of recreational gambling?
I think it's like we talked about. I think it'll improve service. A lot of the wait times that exist on the floor are tied up in money. It's waiting at the ATM. It's waiting at the cage. It's waiting to get paid, a hand paid. It's all waiting. That will all go away. It's more secure, so you're going to feel safer. You're not going to have to worry about people looking over your shoulder or following you around or walking out with you into the car. But at the end of the day, it's what we're all used to. And I do think we have a different world now as well, Chris, because my mother-in-law, I think about her a lot. She's a typical slot player. She's in her 60s. She loves going to the casino. It's one of her favorite things. And 2 years ago, she didn't know how to like do DoorDash or anything. She didn't have an email address, right?
Sure.
Like she literally didn't have an email address. And now she's sending us group orders on DoorDash all the time, and she's completely figured out all of it, right? And so I
Yeah.
think if that's how we're embracing groceries and food delivery and everything else, I mean, why is it that now I have to go out of my routine to somehow go enjoy the casino,
Sure.
right?
No.
I've gotten used to using my phone for everything else.
Hey, I went skiing the other day, and you don't guys ski ticket anymore. You get you preload a card. The card goes. It's an RFID card. It goes in your shirt or your coat, and you open up the ski lift gate through that. It's not even like you have to go and buy a ticket anymore. There's no more interaction. It's kind of neat. You go from your car right to the lift. It kind of took that painful step, right out of the experience. So I can see where some of this stuff is a benefit for the future. I did have a question that kind of arose as you were talking about. How does it work with markers at a casino? I know this is something we didn't discuss. Are people able to take a cashless marker?
So that is something that is coming.
Okay.
So there's a company, and I don't know if they would want me to put their business out there, so I won't, but there's a company that is bringing that to the space, and it'll actually benefit both in-person gaming and mobile gaming. But really, I think casino operators probably, unless prohibited by regulation, could extend their current marker system to mobile. But what this company is looking to do is, no longer would you have to come in and pay with cash, to solve your marker, or would
Okay.
you have to have necessarily a debit withdrawal, because that marker will drop and you just have it removed from your bank account. But maybe you want to throw it on your Marriott card or your debit card or whatever's the most convenient. This company is bringing that option to the market.
That's appealing for those of us who chase points. I like that idea. Speaking of that, what are the best payouts on the market for players today?
So, when we think in payments, when we think about payouts, we're not thinking of odds and things like that, which are what maybe your audience thinks of when they think of payouts, but it's how do I get my money really quick?
Sure. Yeah. Like
And
I want to withdraw my money. I mean, on some of these online casinos, you have to wait for like the third Tuesday in a leap year and be between
right.
3:30 and 4:30 Eastern Standard. And if not, you're on the fence.
Exactly. And so what our research has shown is that even more than how much they trust the brand or the reward system or even the odds, players today are choosing where to play online based on how quickly they can be paid. And so by far the best way to be paid out is what's called OCTs. Don't worry about memorizing what that means. Doesn't matter.
Okay, good. I just wrote it down. It look smart.
But essentially, it's a way where you get your money directly on your Visa debit card or your MasterCard debit card. And the Visa program is called Visa Direct, and the MasterCard program is called Money Send. They both advertise that it takes about 30 minutes to get your funds. What we find in practicality is by the time you've logged out of your gaming app and logged into your banking app, the funds are not only there, but they're available. It is nearly instantaneous. Our average is about 22 seconds is what we're seeing. And it has 98% acceptance. So that means that out of 100 people who tried to make this happen, 98 out of the 100 were successful in withdrawing the funds and getting it on their card all within that time frame. The two that weren't probably fat fingered something and didn't put their card information in right.
Okay.
Or they tried to use a card that isn't an accepted card type. So it has to be a debit card, has to be Visa or MasterCard to work. But that is by far the best way to get paid out. The second best way is ACH, but ACH works on banking hours, so it's closed on nights and weekends. And I don't know about you, Chris, that's when I like to gamble.
Sure.
So the Visa and MasterCard programs are 24/7, 365. It's by far the best way to get paid out.
How many casinos? I mean, do you even have an idea of how many casinos your group is currently working with here in North America?
So I've heard a statistic. I don't know if it's exactly 100% accurate, but it came from one of the networks. But they said roughly 85% of all of their gaming traffic comes through WorldPay.
Wow. The thing that I like about what you're doing, when we learned about the gold rush as kids in school, it wasn't the people who were out mining the gold that made the money. It was the people who sold them the picks and the shovels and the beef jerky and everything to keep going. And it's the behind the scenes businesses that keep, quite frankly, I don't know if people realize, gambling is the largest entertainment spend in North America. If you look at like all the different, people spend on movies and drinking and going out, gambling out, like eclipses them by like a 7x. So to see something like this coming up, I'm pretty excited. And it's evolution. We got to grow. Things have changed. I think the world has sped up even faster than we expected because of the pandemic. I'm happy to be getting through the end of it, or at least seeing some light at the end of the tunnel, and maybe taking along some of the benefits that we picked up, going forward. Joe, let's talk a little bit. We're kind of getting towards the end here, but I wanted to know. It sounds like players really should not resist gambling. What's your advice? Should a player resist it, embrace? I know I'm asking a salesman of the industry to say should we resist it, but what are the things to look out for, and what are the things that we didn't cover that are big benefits?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing to look out for is make sure you're dealing with a licensed operator. If a license is required, make sure they have a U.S. entity. If they don't have a U.S. entity, they're probably not operating legally. That's not 100%. That's pretty close to 100%. So, that doesn't mean they can't be owned by a company out of Maltese or something, but mostly the networks are requiring you to have a US entity. So that's a good start. Make sure they have a license, because if they're not doing those things right, what makes you think their random number generators right? What makes you think that their games are truly fair? I mean, I would start to call into question everything. So, that would be my biggest advice. But outside of that, you probably should use your card, if for no other reason, because your card has those built-in protections through the chargeback system where you can call your bank and you can fight it, and it's meant to do that. Whereas if you try to do that with, ACH as an example, or you brought cash somewhere and they paid in that way or whatever, you don't really have any of those protections that you have for everything else. I mean, if you order something on Amazon and it didn't show up, Amazon will refund you or your card will, but someone's going to take care of you. And if you do ACH or something like that, it doesn't quite work that same way.
It's one of the reasons I like buying things on my card. I always feel protected, even especially with the online shopping today. I made a couple of purchases that look good on the screen, and then you get it, and you're like, oh my God, this is nothing what we thought. And if the merchant gives you a hard time, you just call your credit card company and say, hey, geez, these guys aren't playing fair. They always protect them. They always protect the customer, it seems like. So I would imagine that that's going to be how it's going to go forward with online gaming. The customer will be protected, especially if they're using a major card like a Visa or a MasterCard.
Yes, for sure. And the merchants themselves are incented by the networks to keep their fraud down. And so they put a lot of controls and checks in place to make sure that nobody is abusing your card and that things are done correctly. And so it's protection both ways. So everyone wins when you're using your card. It's the right thing to go with.
Joe, I've had a lot of fun learning about cashless gaming. I hope that my audience has had some fun and they learned a couple of things. I know that I've learned a few things, Joe. Thank you so much for bringing all of your information to our audience and just taking the time. It's been nice to kind of catch up with you and really educate me and everybody on cashless gaming.
Thank you, Chris, for having me. It was a blast and looking forward to hopefully not 2.5 years from now talking to you again.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely get you back on the show. Hey, what I'm going to do is I'll be sure to put in the show notes, gang, links to Joe's website, so you can take a look at what FIS Global does. They do more than just the merchant services that we're talking about. If any of the operators are interested in getting in touch with Joe, would you like to provide any contact information or no?
No, yeah, of course. Best way to reach me is through my email. It's just joseph.watkins, WATKINS, at fisglobal.com. And, feel free to shoot any question at me. If I don't know the answer, I'll point you in the right direction. But glad to be here, Chris, and hope to hear a lot from you and your audience.
Come on, Joe. I really appreciate you coming. It's been a fun conversation. Thanks again, man. Absolutely. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience before I start rolling the music and giving everybody the calls to action?
Listen to the next episode of Art in the Game.
Oh, my God. That's the best advice yet. No, I'm just kidding. Joe had some much better advice than just that. Everybody, I want to thank you for sticking around to the end of the episode. I want to thank Joe Watkins for coming in, and of course, the folks over at WorldPay FIS Global for making him available. I am super happy that you're here. Go ahead, call the AITG Player Hotline at 413-285-2111 to tell us all about your gambling casino episodes. And make sure you go ahead and follow me on YouTube and Twitter and Instagram, and go ahead and join the private community on Facebook. On behalf of Joe Watkins and Chris Tomorrow at Art in the Game, we're wishing you great luck, players.
Awesome stuff, man.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. I'll stop recording here.